Hey y'all, Money in the Bank just happened and we had a ton of surprises and amazing Mr. and Mrs. Money in the Bank, and a lot of alliances have now been destroyed, and we just witnessed the Civil War. Guys, this is the Money in the Bank after show on Women's Wrestling Talk. Let's get into it.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey, like I said, this is the Money in the Bank after show on Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Of course, I'm your girl, Stephanie Hardy, host and writer of this beautiful platform and host and creator of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And I am so happy to be here hosting this amazing show to talk about an amazing pay-per-view that just took place this Saturday afternoon into an evening. I just cannot believe anything that we just saw, but I am just so thrilled and just happy with everything that just happened. But of course, I am not alone. I am here with the kings of women's wrestling talk. Usually you see me with a lot of the queens of women's wrestling talk, but this is my first time with these guys, and I'm really excited to be here with the live crew for the news. So first off, we have Boonie Mayfield. I'm so happy to be on with you. And also Cedric. We are here with the WWT live crew. How are you guys doing, and how are y'all feeling about this show that we just witnessed?
Awesome show, top to bottom. I know over the past week or so we were getting all the quote unquote messages that there were going to be some big surprises, and there were. They definitely delivered on those surprises. They definitely hit on who I felt should go over in certain matches. It was overall like there was something you could take home with every single match. And you can't say that for every show. There was something that you can literally, every match had like a nice little Easter egg take home. It's just like, oh, wow, this is going to happen now. It's really dope stuff. So I'm very happy with this show.
Yes, I am happy too. Now, Boonie, of course, had a different type of situation going on with time. And, of course, in London, they have a different time zone than we do. And sometimes when life happens, you just kind of get mixed up a little. But either way, Boonie, are you ready to get into the awesomeness that was Money in the Bank?
Yes, I'm pretty much it's like I feel like I'm going to be watching Money in the Bank right now. Y'all are the commentators for me. I'm going to be excited to hear what happened. I mean, it's bittersweet because I'm not getting to see it just happen first, but I'm excited. I'd rather hear, I'd rather hear from you guys than anybody else. So let's go.
Absolutely. You're here with family and you're in a safe space, and that's all that matters. And for those who are watching on all live platforms, thank you guys for watching, and chime in into the comments as you come in and just talk about everything that you liked about the show. And you might wind up on screen for those in the comments, just blow up the chat and just get it cracking. So of course, this Money in the Bank emanated from the O2 Arena, which is a relatively new arena, like in the past 10 years. Historically, it's known as the arena where Michael Jackson would have had his final concert had he not passed away, sadly. And it's a very beautiful arena. It looks kind of like a brain control helmet with all of the antennas on top of it. But either way, it took place in London, England, in the UK, and they were a raucous crowd throughout the entire show from beginning to end. And of course, they were raucous last night on SmackDown as well. We talked about it on the SmackDown After Show with me and Dreon Santana, our EIC. So it is just it was an amazing night from start to finish. So of course we have to start with the first match, which was really surprising for me that they started with this, but either way, it was a good start. It started with the men's Money in the Bank match, of course, dealing with Santos Escobar from the LWO, or the London World Order, for this weekend. Butch, who is of course a hometown favorite because he's from Birmingham, UK. Shout out to them because I'm from Birmingham, Alabama, so we have a connection there. And Damien, Priest of the Judgment Day, everyone's favorite to win, LA Knight, Shinsuke Nakamura, who just had a song released about him by little Uzi Vert just yesterday. So shout out to him for that. Logan Paul, everyone's not favorite to win, and Ricochet. And this match was amazing from start to finish. I don't have a lot of pictures from it because Twitter was down. So hey, we just had to go with what we had to go with. Joseph in the comments saying it's a beautiful arena. Jeffrey saying my 2 picks didn't win at all. I don't know how to feel about this. Fun match nonetheless. Yes, I understand. Like, it was a lot of crazy stuff that went down. Lots of amazing acrobatics. Ricochet actually hit one of his famous splashes onto Butch on the ladder, and the ladder did not give. Logan Paul actually hit a splash, and the ladder still did not give. There was one huge moment where Santos actually hit a hurricanrana onto an opponent from the top rope. Like, it was just insane stuff. It was insane stuff going on. And then you also had LA Knight, who had a really on fire spot throughout this match where he was beating everybody up, throwing everybody out, and he almost got to the top 1,000 times in this match. But sadly, he would not win. And it was just so sad because every time he would get in the match, the crowd in the arena would just erupt with excitement.
Go off, I bet.
Oh my God. Everybody was so excited. I was excited. I was watching it with my dad. I was excited. I was like, oh my God, he could do it. He could do it. But sadly, it wasn't to be for our favorite man. And Damien Priest wound up winning the Money in the Bank briefcase for this year, representing the Judgment Day and representing himself. He is Mr. Money in the Bank. And it's just insane stuff. It's insane to think about. Joseph in the comments saying it felt like Damien only won as a thank you for making Bad Bunny look like $1 million. I mean, you could say that because Backlash really did have an aura that we are low-key still feeling even now with the international thing going on. So you could say that. But either way, Damien Priest was my second choice to win, right next to LA Knight. I wanted LA Knight to really win. But if he didn't, I was really pushing for Damien Priest to win. So congratulations to him.
Yes.
It's amazing. He deserves it. After being on top, and winning the US title for so long and finding himself in Judgment Day, he really has done a phenomenal job recreating himself. And yes, having a good street fight with Bad Bunny. So this was well deserved.
Yeah.
So starting with Cedric, how did you feel about this match as a whole?
You know what? I'm kind of used to them starting off a card with the Money in the Bank ladder match. I was surprised it was the men's, but that made me feel like there was going to be something else to happen later on the show with the angle. I feel like with the field, this is one of the better fields they've had in recent years because it would be a genuine surprise either way with whomever won. I love the collective hate in the match for Logan Paul that everybody was scrambling to destroy Logan Paul. Ricochet is a human highlight reel. He's always going to show on every match. The springboard 450 onto the ladder was an amazing moment. Big spot in the match. Butch hitting the moonsault onto the field from outside on top of the ladder was another amazing spot. Obviously, a hometown guy. I feel like the crowd was hot, but they had their little favorites here and there. Like they were singing Nakamura's song along the entire way in the entrance. So that made me feel like maybe they give Nak a moment, but you can't go wrong with Damien Priest. He's been one of the hottest acts since joining the main roster from NXT. He's been one of the more protected characters since joining the main roster. I think he's only taken a clean loss maybe once or twice, legitimately. So there's big things planned for Priest, and I feel like everybody's known this for a while. You can't go wrong with it, especially now that you're teasing the dissension within Judgment Day with them being the dominant faction on Monday nights. They already have Rhea, who's a hot act, so it seems like they're going to really elevate Judgment Day to another stratosphere, even with them possibly going down to NXT to do a spell. So I'm happy with the outcome. I think it'll be very, very telling as far as how long Priest holds on to this briefcase, too. Let's talk about that because he teased it for Finn and Seth's match, which is interesting, but it's like with all the dissension going on in the Bloodline right now, do you go that angle? Because I feel like the company's really high on Priest, but it makes me think, well, how high? How high exactly? How hot can the stove get with Damien Priest? Because they obviously are like shooting him to the moon right now. They put him in that match with Bad Bunny, obviously protecting Bad Bunny. But actually, shout out to Ricochet too for protecting Logan Paul in that spot on the what do you call it? Zelina del Sol. I forget what the move was, but they flipped it outside the ring. It seemed like that spot was supposed to be something else, and Ricochet improvised and still protected Logan Paul's neck. So that was a very scary spot. But I think this was really a 10 out of 10 match, and I think they nailed the outcome because you couldn't go wrong. There was like literally a case for everybody in this match for being the Money in the Bank winner.
Absolutely. I agree with all of those points. Very salient points made. Boonie, how are you feeling hearing that Damien Priest wound up winning the match? And who was ultimately your favorite to win?
LA Knight was definitely my favorite. I am the big LA Knight advocate. I think he's underestimated. So I was rooting for him. Who I honestly thought was going to win, based on even the conversation that we were having yesterday, Cedric, I was thinking Logan Paul was probably going to get it, and so that's what I was just assuming. So when I heard it was Damien Priest, automatic thought was like, that's what's up. Well deserved. That's cool. I think that's going to be a really good look for him. The Judgment Day as a whole, I think they're just on fire. Everybody is just like, I mean, geez, each one individually has something just really going on a level that just wasn't prior to the Judgment Day. So I think it's really cool. And I thought I would say I would agree with you, Stephanie, that it's just like, okay, if it wasn't LA Knight, all right, yeah, go to Damien. I'm cool with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's just everybody could have been was operating on a high level, and even Logan Paul, who really had never really been in a match like this, he did a good job. Like, I'll give credit where credit is due, but he's very unpopular, and like you said, Cedric, everybody was booing him collectively every time he got in the ring, and anytime somebody knocked him down, they were everyone's new best friend. So either way, it was just a lot going on, and it was a lot of great spots here and there, but it was a 10 out of 10 match, and Damien Priest does deserve it because Judgment Day really I guess you could say they're like the second most dominant faction that WWE has right now.
Hands
like
down.
next to the Bloodline, if you can really call them a faction anymore.
Yeah, that's kind
at this point. So
Yeah.
it was just a lot of crazy stuff. It was really good, but either way, Damien Priest is our new Mr. Money in the Bank. Jeffrey in the comments saying, yeah, we can't go wrong with Punisher Martinez winning, but still LOL. Joseph saying Santos was my favorite. Yeah, he was my third favorite, but I was scared they would put it on Logan. Yeah, me too. He also
One
said
thing we got to stop is we got to stop treating Logan Paul like he's just this ultimate boxer. We got to cut that out. Yeah. One exhibition fight against Floyd Mayweather and was like throwing the punches like this, and now he just knocking people. Come on, man. We got to cut that out.
Yeah.
You can't throw real punches. Like,
True.
Stop it.
True.
People just don't really like him all that much. But I get what you're saying. Joseph saying Damien claimed on the press conference that he wasn't going to cash in on Finn if Finn won allegedly. You got to throw that allegedly in there. And Jeffrey it's not Bloodline anymore. It's just a line now in all caps. So yeah, that's where we're at. Damien is the new Mr. Money in the Bank. Who do you guys see him cashing in on? And do you see him cashing in just for a world title or for any other title that's floating around at this point?
You know what? The company is like riding Seth right now to be like the workhorse champion, stuff like that. So like it would have to be like Seth, because it's definitely not going to be Roman. I don't think they're going to let anybody kind of invade that storyline outside of maybe Kevin and Sammy. But you know what? Underrated thing, since they're really trying to boost NXT, is like I wouldn't be mad if he went down and worked a program with Melo. Wouldn't be mad at it at all, because I think Melo's kind of void of challengers. Not saying he has to use his Money in the Bank briefcase on Melo, but just it'll take some attention away from the time while they figure out, while they give Seth a decent title run. But I keep my eyes on NXT. I will keep my eyes on NXT for a possible matchup coming here in the next sometime during the summer.
Yeah, you are absolutely right, because when Melo was on Raw this past week, he did kind of tie up with the Judgment Day by defending Seth Rollins, against Finn. So if that were to happen, that would be a really, open thing that could happen, that they do have, with Melo, because Melo really has beaten everybody. He beat, even though it was a hard fought victory, he beat Baron Corbin, and then he beat Braun Breaker. So you never know who else will turn up to challenge Carmelo Hayes. But yeah, like that's a really good thought to have. I'm glad you mentioned that, Cedric.
And I hope we have we got to get back to the era where they actually hold the briefcase for like over 6 months, because you really have a
Yes,
I
calendar
agree,
year
man.
I
to
agree.
cash in. It doesn't have to happen anytime soon. Let's strike some fear. Let's have
Yeah.
that. Yeah, let's have some patience with when it's going to happen. Like if you look at the throwback cash-ins, like when Dolph Ziggler did it, when the whole arena erupted, because it's like, oh, it's finally happening. Let's do something
Yeah.
like that. We got a whole 365. Let's wait till like 350 days before we even think about,
You think of it?
all right,
I
let's cash
agree,
this
man.
in.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah.
I feel like the last person who held Money in the Bank the longest was either Seth Rollins or
It was actually Carmella. Carmella holds the record for having held it the longest,
yeah, she
because
did
she
have that.
cashed in 2000, was it 2018, on Charlotte Flair, after she was attacked by the Inspiration, formerly known as the Iconics, and that was on an episode of
Got
SmackDown.
it.
So yeah, that's when that happened. So Carmella currently has the
Long.
record for holding it the longest.
Okay. And out of the men, who has the longest?
I'm not sure. I don't know for the men, but I
I'm
know
not too
Carmella has the longest period.
longest for
So
period. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, out of the men, I'm not too sure. I just feel like I just remember one of the most notable was Seth Rollins when he had the Money in the Bank, and then it's just like I gotta go back in my memories and remember, like,
Yeah, holding that briefcase kind of builds an entire different identity. There's so much character
yeah,
development that can come with just
come from it.
keeping the briefcase on you for a certain period of time.
Yeah, yeah. Because
yeah,
I think once I started watching wrestling again, became it during the time Seth had Money in the Bank at that time, and he was with the Authority.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he had that J&J security too, and all that. Yeah, I remember all that stuff. So yeah, he had the J&J security for the briefcase, everything. So that's like that shit was just so entertaining, just like how he did that. So that's why his is just so notable to me, And he held it, seemed to be holding it for a while. So it seems like it's gotten shorter and shorter, you know the times. I hate the same night cash in. Anytime that happened, I was like, oh man.
Yeah, but I do believe, though, the one with Liv Morgan was really cool, even though that was the same night she wanted. That one was really
Yeah.
amazing.
That
And the
was
fact that it was on Ronda was really cool too. And
that's
speaking of Liv and Ronda, we're gonna move towards the women's tag team championship match between Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez versus Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler for those women's tag team titles that they never lost, because of course Raquel and Liv had to give those up due to the fact of Liv's injury. So now she is back, and they decided to challenge for these titles. I was really excited about this match, but it was really scary in certain points. After Liv Morgan got her arm stomped on by Shayna, like she stomped on it, and then after that point, her and Ronda were basically just throwing her around the ring like a rag doll. It was really bad. And then at one point, they even tried to go for a double submission onto Liv, and it almost looked like Liv was possibly going to like pass out, but she didn't. And her and Raquel were really fighting for these titles, tooth and nail, as much as they possibly could. But a shocking turn of events happened in this match. Right when it looked like Ronda could have, beat up on Liv some more to retain their titles, Mama Shayna decided to attack Ronda Rousey.
Wait,
But
what?
oh my gosh, yes, Boonie. But before I get to that part, I just want to have a moment for Liv Morgan's Union Jack flag outfit. It was so cute. I loved it. And a lot of people saying she was giving like Spice Girls, and I love that because that's just a 90s thing. And I love the Spice Girls. And what we really, really wanted was for Liv to have a moment. And that's what she did. She had her moment after this turn of events, with Shayna turning on Ronda out of nowhere, choking her out, beating her up, and even beating the Majin off of her forehead. Because if you are a Dragon Ball Z fan, you know that but Ronda Rousey was dressed up like Majin Vegeta. And I feel like at this point, a lot of people should really stop dressing like Vegeta, because if you dress like Vegeta, you are going to lose. Because this happened to Rhea Ripley when she fought Charlotte for the NXT Women's title at WrestleMania during the pandemic era. Like, if you dress up like Vegeta or Majin Vegeta, you're going to lose somehow. And it's cursed. And this is what's happened. Like, Shayna turned on her MMA 4-horsewoman sister, and Liv was just looking shocked the whole time. She even said, "What the F" on camera. Not audibly, but she said it, and I read her lips, and I was like, oh my god, she cursed on camera. It was funny. Man. And of course, Raquel and Liv took advantage, and now they are the new women's tag team champions. Now, as happy as I am about this turn of events in terms of the story and how crazy this is gonna go, I can't help but feel a little bit sad at the idea that it just felt like just yesterday, Ronda and Shayna won and unified these titles with the NXT women's tag team titles against Alba Fire and Isla Dawn. And now the tag titles have new owners again. It's like a hot potato thing that's going on with these titles. And it's just really, really sad. But at this point, I guess there's really nothing else you could really expect out of here. But either way, the story leading into it was still fantastic. And there you see Ronda writhing in pain after what she just endured. So yeah, Liv and Raquel won the titles, and this is where we're at, ladies and gentlemen. This is where we're at. So starting with Cedric, how did you feel about this strange turn of events here with Ronda and Shayna?
First things first, put the titles back on Isla and Alba. There was literally no need to unify and take away a necessary push that they needed being on the main roster right now as a real team. I even tweeted out, I hope that at some point, once Dakota is actually healed back from injury, that we can get back to Dakota and Raquel. I thought that was a really better team in NXT. As far as the match, I left thinking just why? Like, really, why? Like, there had to be a better way for you to split up Shayna and Ronda than in that moment and just deal with the shock value, because it doesn't really make sense. From the standpoint of, like, why would I wrestle and fight the entire match against my adversaries just to turn into the last moment?
Yeah.
There's no real dissension that went on, unless you're gonna say, like, oh, why'd you tag yourself in? But it wasn't like an aggressive tag. It was like, all right, I'm gonna go finish the job.
So there wasn't even like a lead in, like someone accidentally got hit.
It was completely out of the blue, you know?
Yeah, out of the blue.
And a lot of fans are here for it because, like, forget Ronda, obviously, and I guess that's cool. But the problem with liking this so much, there's two things. One, we're gonna get babyface Ronda again. I don't think anybody wants that. Two,
man, you gotta go.
This should lead to Queen of Spades Shayna that we most notably saw in NXT, especially with her OG theme. If you can date back a few years to Shayna Baszler when she got caught up in, like, clearing the field in the Elimination Chamber, if it leads to that Shayna Baszler, then it's a win. It's a win altogether because it elevates her to that stratosphere that, if you want to say Vince never saw her as, then cool. But it just seems like this was like a forced way to get to this moment, and it didn't really mesh with the match.
Man, Cedric.
Maybe I'm being overly critical, but it's like, why am I going to fight somebody for 10, 15 minutes and then turn on my partner in the last moment? That doesn't make sense to me.
The key word you said is seams. X that out. That ain't no seams, bro. The way I hear that is just completely forced in order to get the belt back, and it wasn't, like, really thought out, you know, or planned. And I think if some kind of, like, a couple mishaps that would have built some frustration during the match between the two, like, you know, accidentally hitting each other or something like that, okay, that it still would have felt forced, you know, but it still would have felt like, oh, okay, well, at least they did something. But if it was just, like, out of nowhere, like, you know what, like, it, then
I feel like you could have built the dissension between them by losing the unification match. That would have been a better way to do it. Especially if you were just going to take the belts off them, like, a week or two later and give them back to Raquel and Liv. And that's been the critical problem with these titles, is the fact that there's not lengthy title reigns. There's not a building of credibility for the division. And it seems like this is more of that.
There's
and
not
that's
enough.
really an issue, especially when you could have allowed new characters to kind of unify the belts, establish themselves in the main roster, and then told this story another way, just because you could have played the, oh, it's your fault we didn't unify angle, as opposed to what we got here. But now, without being so pessimistic, I get why they did it. It's because you're in the UK, you're in London, you're going to have a ruckus crowd and you have that shock value, but the shock value only tells you part of the story, unfortunately.
Yeah, and then sometimes the shock value can end up limiting, the potential where, where the story could have went. But,
Yeah, like I can say that in the moment it was shocking. It was out of nowhere and I did not expect it at all, because of course they did seem that when they went for those tag titles and when they were attacking Raquel, that they were really serious about it. And then you also had most of the press stuff that they were doing where they were talking about, how they wanted to sort of build up the titles and do all this other stuff, which is kind of the same thing that a lot of the women who won the tag titles have been saying, including 2 women who are no longer with them. Let me just throw that out there. It just feels like in this state, I could kind of understand how you guys feel. It came out of nowhere. There was no story. There was no seeds planted. It just happened. And in that, I can definitely understand how you guys feel with feeling like it just happened out of nowhere. There was no build to it, and that's not exactly the best way to do it. And of course, with the hot potatoing of the title, that's also another frustrating part that has just been happening with those titles, period. Everyone wants these titles to succeed and wants them to mean something the same way the men's tag titles do, where you see a team, actually have chemistry and balance and they carry the titles for a long period of time and then get into a feud and then lose them. But it's like these titles have just been polarizing ever since they've gotten started. I don't know. I don't know what's on them or if somebody put a hex on it or something, but it's just something about these titles that have just made people, have conversations about them, about what is their place. Will they truly mean something? Should they just get rid of them altogether and just turn it into a mid-card title for the women? It's just a lot.
You already said that. That's all I've been saying. They just need a mid-card title. That's what they need, because it's just like with the tag titles, they don't seem to value and respect the titles enough to build good stories, to build long-lasting teams, and all of that. So it's just like, okay, well, there's so many women in the mid-card range that are not going to be in the picture for the main title. So it's just like it's just a missed opportunity. I talk about that all the time. There should be a women's intercontinental belt.
Yeah, and it's just, what I will say is this though. I am happy that this is like, I almost feel like this is low-key like long-term storyline revenge, because if you think about last year, Ronda got cashed in on by Liv and won a title off her. Now even this year she's won the tag titles off of Ronda and Shayna, but that was due to some crazy stuff and shenanigans from Shayna. So it's just like, it's a lot of crazy stuff that's happened with this. But either way, I am intrigued, because in the past, before everything happened with the merger and all the other rumors of Vince and stuff, coming back, they did sort of plant a little bit of a seed online of Shayna and Ronda possibly having a rivalry, but then they never did anything with it and sort of separated them outside of when it became, lucrative to put them together again. So it is something that they have quietly explored, but not really fully explored now. So maybe this is the time for them to fully explore what would happen if Shayna, who has more experience being a wrestler and MMA hybrid, then Ronda will go up against someone who you could say would overshadow her with her light and with her fame. Like, there is something that they have to explore, but having the women's tag titles to suffer for it, I do agree, is a little bit of a letdown. But either way, Liv and Raquel were able to have a moment like that in front of a crowd that was cheering for them all the throughout the whole thing. So I don't want to take away Liv and Raquel's moment either. So they did win those titles back that they never lost. So congratulations to them. But yeah, it's just a lot to discuss, but I won't go into it here because the comments are going crazy talking about the situation with the tag titles and Mercedes and all of that, and Mercedes and Trinity and what they wanted to do. But, you know, it's a conversation that we'll be having for years to come. So,
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna move on to the
And
next.
the only way that works, if they're going to really do this, like Ronda versus anything, Shayna has to go over.
Right.
She has to go over, because if she doesn't go over, it's a waste.
Yeah.
If you're talking about Ronda Rousey, who's seen as the most dominant threat in the division, star power, all that, if you don't elevate Shayna over her, then Ronda's still just this unbeaten
Yeah, and that's her
entity.
Yeah, and that's her peer too. You know, that's her. That's
like you can't play the whole I can really fight thing anymore, because you have somebody else that can really fight too.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. Honestly, I'd rather see a rivalry with them right now rather than a tag team, because as a tag team right now, they just too dominant. Like they go so hard. It's really not that believable that anybody else is gonna beat them like that. You know, unless they're crumbling, like, you know, distracted, like, you know, whatever what happened now. So I'm more interested in seeing them, you know, face off finally.
Yeah, I am too. So yeah, we'll just see what happens from there. But like I said, Liv and Raquel are now the new women's tag team titles. So congratulations, tag team champions. So congratulations to them. So the next match was, of course, Matt Riddle versus Gunther for the Intercontinental title. And this entrance for Gunther I really loved, because it felt like NXT UK vibes for me, because he came out there and Ludwig Kaiser was able to do the whole little intro thing that he used to do for him back in the day. So I was glad that he was able to have that moment in the UK where Gunther was actually, you know, got his start, you know, with Progress and so many other places where he had fought and beat up people and smacked their chests in and stuff like that. So, and this was also where he started his UK reign, because he was, I believe at this point, the longest reigning NXT UK champion at this point. So yeah, he's that guy, okay? And he was able to have that moment and all of the above. But the only thing I hated was the fact that Samantha wasn't able to announce him in, because the way Samantha announces Imperium in, it just slays me every time. She slays me every freaking time, but it's okay. I understand why. And then, of course, you have Matt Riddle, who's looking to get his lick back against Imperium and Gunther for not taking him seriously and destroying his foot backstage. So, yeah, it's just a lot going with that. But it was very brutal throughout this match. Matt Riddle really did want to win the title, you know, tried to use all of his submission work and try to utilize his legs and arms when he couldn't use his, you know, most of his feet and ankles, but it just wound up not working out, and he wound up having his chest caved in and his arm low-key injured and stuff like that. Like, it was just a lot going on for Matt Riddle, and he wound up not winning. And Gunther, of course, is still your Intercontinental champion, but it doesn't end there. Gunther was celebrating his win with the IC title, and we heard some very familiar music with a very familiar sword sheathing coming out, and it was Drew McIntyre, Dimples Drew, Jeans Drew, popping up on Gunther and starting a fight with him and saying that he wanted to go for the IC title, and he wound up hitting him with the Claymore kick, and everybody was crunk about it. So yeah, Drew McIntyre, Dimples Drew, is back, and he wants a piece of the IC title, and I could not be any happier that he had another moment in the UK like he had at Clash of the Castle last year. It was really great, and I was really happy for him and happy for Gunther for retaining his title and still continuing his reign of being the longest reigning IC champion of the century. It's really crazy. But yeah, this is where we're at. It's really amazing stuff. So I'm gonna start with Boonie now. Boonie, how do you feel knowing that, of course, well, Gunther is still the champion. He made Matt Riddle submit by injuring his ankle even more. But Drew McIntyre is back and he wants a piece of the action.
That's awesome because it's just like I'm just waiting. I was just waiting for the next rivalry, for him. That's going to be really, you know, interesting. So Drew McIntyre. How long has he been out of the picture now? How long has he been gone? I'm not sure, but just hearing about, just seeing him back and then seeing them two in the ring, just on that picture, I was all automatically like, oh yeah, I gotta see that. This is gonna be good. That yeah, just someone of that size too with them, because yeah, I mean Gunther, he's again dominating just across the board, and so now with Drew McIntyre in the picture, now I'm like, oh, where is this gonna go? So hearing about him retaining his, keeping his championship, that's automatic. I would have been completely surprised if it was the opposite. I already expected that. The surprise is now he got some competition that's going to be very interesting to see.
Absolutely. What about you, Cedric? How are you feeling about this turn of events?
I like the match. It's your traditional hard hitting match. I think these guys might have worked with each other in NXT as well, so you get that hard hitting slam fest feel. I thought they made it believable. I did like the ending a lot, and I think the thing I like about Gunther's matches is that he finishes matches in an array of different ways. It's not just like boom boom finisher and we out of here. Like he chopped the feet to apply pressure to Riddle's foot and ankle and submitted him. So he just has an array of ways to inflict violence, which makes his matches so exciting and refreshing. Now, we haven't seen Drew since WrestleMania in the triple threat for the Intercontinental Championship. So this is actually a really big deal because we didn't think Drew was going to come back. We thought that maybe he would kind of leave because of the contract demands, stuff like that. So not only him coming back, but that lets you know, especially because he's doing the Make-A-Wish stuff like 2 weeks ago or whatever on WWE.com. So the contract obligations must have been resolved. He might have a long-term deal. Maybe the direction for him is a little bit clearer. So I was just saying a week ago, you can't be over in the UK and not bring Drew out. So give him a feud, have him go in the mid-card scene away from the other picture for now is really cool. Because now you get to see Drew versus Gunther one-on-one, which you didn't get that months ago because Sheamus was always in the picture as well. So this would be very telling how they do this because Drew is like a big star, if you will, but Gunther is ascending. So does Gunther's title reign end at the hands of Drew, or does Gunther go over? Because I think the T is they want him to break Honky Tonk's record at like 4 something. So this can be another stepping stone for Gunther, which will only like really elevate his legend. So
what would you like to see, Cedric? What would you like to see? As far as that, would you rather see Gunther go over or?
So selfishly, I'm waiting for the day because I read this months ago. I'm waiting for Imperium versus New Day, selfishly. So if they can eventually get to that where everybody's healthy, I think that's the optimal time for Gunther to drop the belt to one of the 3 members. So I would like to see Gunther go over because Drew doing the Intercontinental title reign doesn't really do anything for him right now, personally. I think you're waiting for Drew to challenge Roman at some point. Mm-hmm. So hopefully they push that button after this feud is over sometime in the summer.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that would be insane if that were Imperium versus the New Day. It's like you have dominant faction versus dominant faction. Like you have a wall versus a wrecking. Well, not even a wrecking ball. You have a wall versus a wall with that. Because they are just so good, and they would do an amazing match with each other, faction versus faction. That would be amazing.
And they're so different too. So it's just that'd be very fun to watch. Just the different styles, the different themes and everything. It'd just be a really entertaining, And
they still haven't really unleashed Kaiser and Vinci as a tag team yet. Like you go back to their NXT matches, they put on really good matches. Like Vinci is low key like baby Cesaro, and I'm just waiting for them to allow him to showcase that on main. So I think having a kind of a dance partner like the New Day and that tag team, that trio, that could really pop if they ever get to that point.
That would be crazy.
Yeah, that would be crazy. And I could see them letting Gunther, hold on to it, past Honky Tonk Man's reign. Like I definitely see that happening. But it's just like when it comes to Drew, I'm really glad that he was able to come back and have that moment, with his people amidst so many rumors. And yeah, Cedric, I'm glad that you did mention, WrestleMania, because a lot of us were in the presence of everything, happening in LA. And that triple threat match was one of the best matches of that weekend.
Yeah.
And Sheamus really was, gunning for Drew because, of course, they were friends. And he felt like Drew just sort of inserted himself in when he knew that Sheamus really wanted that title after never having won it. So it's just like now that Drew sort of stepped up to be the next big person to challenge Gunther at this point, it's poetic that way. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. It's very full circle. I'm wondering if Sheamus will have anything to say about it, or if they will still have a friendship past this. That is, if Drew were to win or not win. But I do think this is a fresh coat of paint for Drew, because we're always so used to, and I think this is a part of the reason why those contract rumors got started. We're really used to seeing Drew sort of being on top and going for the top titles. When it comes to, him doing the heavyweight title stuff from the pandemic all the way on, it always felt like he was trying to sort of insert himself back into that type of environment again, because he went through his run as the WWE champion without a crowd, and he might want to recapture some of that magic now that we are all present to see it. But everyone has moved on to different things. New titles are in play. They're just that time has passed.
Yeah.
But if you have him going up against someone as dominant as Gunther, who has held that title and brought prestige back to the IC title, now it's like you have so much more that you can do with that rivalry. And even if Gunther were to go over, to break Honky Tonk's record, you still have the capability of a rivalry there. Like they could fight that one time, but then they could also fight a second time or a third time. Like you could have an ongoing rivalry with that. So there's so much they could do.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited about where they could go with it. But Gunther is still the Intercontinental Championship and champion. And yeah, Matt Riddle is injured, and hopefully he'll be feeling better soon. So yeah, lots of crazy stuff happening here. But next we have this crazy match with Dominic Mysterio versus Cody Rhodes, which was rumored to be the main event, but wasn't, thankfully. I guess I could say, because even though Cody is Cody, I didn't see this main eventing at all, especially when the Bloodline is present. So yeah, I didn't see this main eventing at all. This match was pretty interesting. You had Dominic Mysterio, of course, coming out with Mommy, Miss Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley, coming out with a beautiful mohawk hairstyle with her hair braided and her hair curled. Like that was really cute. I've had that hairstyle before, so I really appreciated it. And she came out looking good. And of course, Dominic came out wearing like a bunch of bullets on his chest. And I was like, oh man, okay, so you're gonna come out here and you think you're gonna shoot somebody. All right. So and his boots were really cute. They looked like it was very cow print boots, except I call them cookies and cream boots. So those were really cute. Dominic kept running from Cody Rhodes a lot of this match and sort of playing games with him, but Cody Rhodes is not the type of person that you play games with, okay? Like Cody was beating him up a lot of the time, and there was one point where he almost beat him up outside of the ring, but Rhea got in his face, and I was just like, ma'am, I feel like Rhea gonna have enough of getting in a man's face. Like, I am never, ever, ever here for violence against women by men, but she just keeps getting in men's face over and over again, and I just don't know what's gonna happen with that at some point. Somebody go, they gonna
fear her. No,
like it's just gonna be bad. It's just gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. But either way, Dominic actually was impressive, throughout this match, even though outside of him running away, of course, he tried to hit the Three Amigos onto him. Michael Cole didn't like it. He was cussing him out for it and stuff. But Cody reversed it into his own suplex, and then he hit the crossroads in order to win. So Cody Rhodes wound up winning in front of this crowd that knew every word of his theme song and sang along the entire time. So Cody Rhodes won this match and taught Dominic a lesson, much to the chagrin of Rhea, who looked like she wanted to, interfere, but it was just too late for him. So yeah, Cody beat Dom, and the Judgment Day, I'm sure was shook about it, sad about it, all of the above. And notably, they weren't celebrating with Damien after he won. So, yeah, we'll talk more about that a little bit later. So, Cedric, how did you feel about this match and the performance of Dominic going up against someone like Cody Rhodes?
You know what? I really didn't think this match would make it to a PLE. I'm not gonna lie to you. This seems like a match that was made for Monday Night Raw, but
Yeah.
here we are. This is Cody Rhodes' hard time saga. We're just giving Cody stuff to do until he ultimately goes back for a title. But I guess it elevates Dom, it elevates him a little bit to have that type of rivalry. I think they did a good job of giving Dom some offense, but not too much as to make Cody look weak. I feel like they did a good job with Rhea still in interfering in matches at the right times. It just felt like this was time filler. I don't know if anybody thinks like me. I was waiting for the ball to drop because I thought this was going to be the big surprise that somehow Dom beat Cody. And I thought, like a lot of other fans, that Brock Lesnar would show up and be like, "Oh, you calling me out again? You want to run that third time fade? All right, here I am." Yeah, and you lost to Dom on the way out, but they didn't do it. And you know what tripped me out is like, not that it was a clean win, no shenanigans. I expect that, but the way Cody was kind of playing to the crowd after the win, kind of like overdoing it. Kind of like, I'm going to go on this rope, then I'm going to go on that rope, then I'm going to sit in the middle of the ring, I'm going to do the whoa and sing my song, and then I'm waiting to hear Brock Lesnar's music. Nothing happened. I'm like, I know I'm not tripping. Because like,
Oh man.
with a ruckus crowd in London, you feel like you would give them that payoff, but also move Cody's story forward. So now I just feel like it's kind of stagnant. It's like I beat Dom, yay!
Yeah.
Like where do we go from here? Like I don't know, but I mean,
yeah, it is.
It feels like we're doing a disservice to Cody. It's kind of like a big waste of time at the end of the day. But I mean, I get it. We're trying to go along. SummerSlam's next. Let's see what happens Monday night now.
Yeah, I do sort of agree that this is a match that could have happened on Monday Night Raw, but at the same time, it's just I'm more than sure that the people in London really enjoyed it, and just enjoyed seeing Cody Rhodes because, of course, they probably hadn't seen Cody Rhodes in forever. Because, like a certain person said, we'll get to that in a minute. It's the first PLE that they've had in 20 years out there, and then you think about Cody, who's only been back in WWE for over a year. Like, I'm sure they really appreciated seeing Cody and appreciated booing Dominic.
Yeah.
So it's just
I was just about to say that is the one thing about Dominic. Like, Dominic is really, really just on a great stride as far as character right now. It's like we'll see how things may progress, with his in-ring stuff and, later on down the line and reinventing with the I just can't wait for him to take that thing, the vest off, and get some new kind of attire that's a little more gangster to his character persona, I guess. But anyway, his character, I think, is just people love to hate. When someone loves to hate this person, you know what I'm saying? You got to run with that. And I haven't seen it on quite this level in a long time of heat that's just like those boos are just, and they milk it too. They won't even finish a sentence. Like, let get her. I'm gonna let them boo some more. And it just feels, it's like I look at it like that definitely could have been a match for Raw or SmackDown. I would have expected it to, but at the same time, since they're still trying to, figure out what to do with Cody in the meantime while developing everything else, I don't know. I just feel like I was trying to make a point and I lost my point. I'm sorry.
No,
I
it's
need
okay.
Dom to start braiding his mullet and wearing G Unit tanks. That's what I need.
Oh my
That
God.
that's what I need.
You
That's
need
the
what?
next. That's the
Lord,
next. That's the next elevation for me.
that just took me back.
To
Oh
where,
my
what
God.
kind of tank? You said G
G
unit tank?
unit tank.
I would love that. That would be.
That
Yeah,
is
I mean,
funny.
they could milk it so much more. But yeah, man, I just oh, what I was trying to say is just like right now, Cody, at least he had someone to go against that people love to hate so much. So they can have someone to boo just as hard, you know, rather than going against someone that essentially they don't really care about, you know. So of course they're cheering for Cody, but if he would be going against someone that they'd be like, oh yeah, you know, I think the fact that everyone wants to see Dominic lose. Everybody wants to
Yeah.
see Dominic get his ass handed to him. So what other better person to do that for right now than Cody while he's, you know, still
Riding the
in
wave.
limbo.
Yeah, because the way that I see it, I don't actually see Cody Rhodes in limbo myself. The way that I'm sort of choosing to see Cody is just that he's trying to make the best out of a situation that was very painful for a lot of people and painful for him because of course, when Cody was going to finish the story, he was going to finish it and he was going to beat Roman and all of the above. And he lost, though it was due to shenanigans because, I was there until I wasn't because I did storm out after he lost, but that's another story for another day. Yeah, it's just like Cody lost and he's still trying to figure out, what can he do? How can he work and still show that he's at the best of his ability, without outright challenging Roman or outright challenging Seth as of yet? Because of course, when he tried to go for the world heavyweight title when it was, first created for that tournament, he lost his way due to Brock Lesnar. And he's still just trying to find his way. But at the same time, I don't see him losing relevance at all because he's so prolific, number one, of a wrestler, and number two, prolific of a personality. And people love him too much. Even after he lost, like, the crowd never stopped rooting for him. They never stopped singing his song. They never stopped, feeling for him the way that we still feel for him in terms of him being back and still appreciating him on this side of the wrestling coin. So I don't necessarily see it as him trying to still try to grab relevance. And yeah, he still might be going through hard times. Maybe that's what he has to go through in order to reach the top of the mountain here in WWE. Maybe he has to, figure out what else is next for him because that's just life. When you get knocked down, you stay down for a little bit, you lay down for a little bit, you cry in a corner, but eventually you have to get back up and start doing, what you know you can do as best as you can until you can go back for that top thing. And I feel like that's a good story to tell now. And he's a baby face and we're going to love him, for it anyway, because he's not an underdog because of course he's a Rhodes, but at the same time, he's an underdog in that way. And it's just, I'm really happy that he did beat Dominic. And yeah, you could say that it was kind of like a womp thing because it's not really something that they could keep going. You never know because we still have to wait and see because we just still have Monday coming on the horizon. But you just never know. But either way, Cody is fine.
UK for Monday. Are they still in the UK for Monday? They have some live shows coming up, I believe.
I think they said something about Baltimore, and I believe on Friday they're going to be at Madison Square Garden in New York.
Right, that's where they they did say that. So okay, mate. So no Brock Lesnar. Okay.
Yeah, no Brock Lesnar. That was something I was surprised about myself too. I was sort of expecting him to pop up and try to break him in half again.
Yeah.
But it wound up not happening. So that's where we're at. Cody Rhodes is the winner. So before we get into our next part of the show, we're going to take a little bit of a commercial break and we'll be right back.
Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully you know we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw Post Show, WoW Post Show, AEW Dynamite Post Show, Women's Wrestling Army Post Show, NXT Post Show, Impact Wrestling Post Show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live Post Show, On the Scroll, ROH Post Show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green bubble. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Yes, and of course, shout out to TK Trinidad, our fearless leader, for creating this beautiful platform for us to talk about wrestling all of the time, every day, because wrestling comes on every day. So we are always here to give you the lowdown on everything that's happened with the women and in all of wrestling, period. And also, shout out to her. It's Canada Day, so happy Canada Day, because she's from Canada. She's a Canadian assassin, so we love her. We love her. We love her. So, moving into this point of the show, oh my God, we had such a huge surprise with the arrival of Mr. Never Give Up, hustle, loyalty, respect, all of the things that created our collective childhoods in the 2000s, John Cena! And we could see him. We didn't see this coming, but we could see him when he came out and when that music hit, okay? When that music hits, that's when everything just has to stop and everyone's going to cheer and everyone is happy. And it was just so insane. I was so excited. Like, I just did not expect this at all. I was so thrilled. John Cena is one of my faves from back in the day. I loved him. At one point, I said I was going to marry him, but that's neither here nor there. Stuff happens, life happens. It's okay. You know, I thought for sure, you know, I was going to be Mrs. Cena, but it's all right. John Cena came out here at Money in the Bank, surprised everybody, got a huge pop. Everybody was crunk. He came out there, ran out there, spoke to Stu, shout out to Stu, and, you know, came out there and just gave love and respect to the London crowd. And they appreciated so much to the point to where they said, "Thank you, Cena," clap, 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 clap. And they started so perfectly. And I was just like, oh my God, this is so magical. It was just so great. And John Cena was just talking about, you know, how everybody, you know, in London was just so cool and just how amazing they are, and talked about the fact that this is the first PLE that had taken place in London in 20 years and just how amazing they are as a crowd. And he mentioned something that was really intriguing. He said how amazing it would be if there would be a WrestleMania in London. I was on the floor. I was happy about this because this sort of reminds me of every WrestleMania. You see somebody carrying a sign saying Vancouver for WrestleMania, or this place for WrestleMania, or this place for WrestleMania. You always see it at every show if you're watching it on television or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so it would be really great if London could have a WrestleMania at some point. It would be fantastic for them. And yeah, it's like they've given so much in terms of their talent and so many personalities from London, you know, and from the UK to be there. It would just be really cool. So yeah, he mentioned that and they were really excited about it. I was excited about it. You know, it would just be so crazy. And yeah, Jeffrey in the comments saying WrestleMania in London would be crazy because it would deliver. Yeah, it really would deliver. We would have to gather our funds and travel. It would just be amazing and it would just be a fun time. But he got interrupted by someone who we did not expect to come out here. And that was Grayson Waller, the host of the Grayson Waller Effect and the bane inside of a lot of people's existence. He came out and sort of feigned respect for John Cena and stuff like that and talked about how cool his jorts was and everything. But then he also came out there to say that he felt like it would be better if WrestleMania was in Australia, which is where he's from. And honestly, I mean, that would be cool too. That would be cool for the people of Australia. They could have it at Wallaby Way, Sydney, if they wanted. But I mean, that was killing the vibe. It really was killing the vibe. And he tried to attack John Cena after it was all over. He tried to touch him and tell him like, yo, like, you're gonna listen to me and all that. And John was like, no. And then he said no twice. And Grayson touched him on his chest, and then he wound up beating up on him. And then John Cena got up and gave him an AA and walked out, and just to everyone cheering for him. And that was really it. And he said again, WrestleMania in London, let's think about it. And so that was amazing. Now the comments are going crazy about this. Dylan Matthews is saying, oi, oi, Australia deserves it more. Grayson Waller was right. Joseph was saying, to me, this felt like through John, they were reacting because AEW, a little known company, is far exceeding expectations for All In. They are at 70,000 last I checked. We know 40 is in Philly and 41 is rumored to be in Minneapolis. And Dylan also says we got a 105,000 seat arena in Melbourne waiting.
Man, when they gonna come to Denver?
They need to come Denver.
I think I'm with Dylan on this. I think this would be a little different to have it in Australia.
When are they gonna have it in Birmingham? That's the question. That's the real question that we need to ask. Okay. When we're gonna have it in Birmingham, Alabama. We deserve something too, dang it. But don't get me started on that rant. But all right, Cedric, how did you feel about the arrival of John Cena and what he said about London and them having a WrestleMania?
This was actually a genuine surprise. Like, I was sitting on my couch and I had to sit up a little bit. Like, am I tripping? Is that John Cena? And then I appreciate John. Like, he never comes to the ring in like a suit, stuff like that. He's looking like he's going to compete. It's like, why are you here? But I think it's cool because this is like an interesting temperature check. We know that the PLEs that they have done across the pond have been wildly successful, that the crowds are always very active and vibrant. And that's what you want to see at a live wrestling show. You want to see that in the background, see everybody's involved and not just on their phones, but they're in the moment. So I think this is a very creative way to do an interesting temperature check because nobody expected John to be there, to plant some seeds down the line. Be like, you know what? Maybe WrestleMania 42, 43, 44, maybe we will bring it across the pond. And I think that's something that over the course of the next year and a half, they might just announce so people can start to get their ducats up to kind of pay for that. But no better person to announce that than John Cena, and being who's been the flag bearer for WWE for so long. I'm pretty sure that crowd was very excited to hear that music and see him come out because they did not pay tickets expecting to get that today.
Absolutely. Like, he really has been a standard bearer in WWE for so long. He was the face for such a long time. And so with him coming back and saying that, it was just really cool. Like, it felt like a nice little hug from John Cena to the people of London. Like, it was just a nice hug that just felt warm. And we felt it too. So it was just really great. Boonie, how are you feeling about this possible announcement as to where WrestleMania could go in the next few years?
I just hope this time I won't miss it. This time I make sure my schedule and everything is right. If I can't afford to make it out there like I would like to. So that's cool. That's really cool. Like I'm down for WrestleMania being anywhere, honestly. I just love the show. I just want to see that show come to my hometown one day.
Yes, I agree with that. We all want, WrestleMania to come to our respective hometowns because our hometowns is what we love. And Cedric, wait, you're from Los Angeles, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay, so you got it. Yeah,
he's satisfied. He got it. So that's all.
Yeah, you got yours. Like, so you're good. See, we still waiting.
Like, Denver's on the rise right now. It's getting hot. maybe go over to Denver one day. We'll see.
Yeah, Colorado would be a good trip. I haven't really been outside of going to California. I haven't really been out west, like out there in those states. So that would be really good. That was a good trip.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. My mom actually was raised a little bit out in Arizona. Even though she's from Alabama, she was raised out there in Arizona. So I kind of heard about it, but just never been. So I would love to go to Denver. It sounds amazing. But yeah, Birmingham, we would have to build another place for WrestleMania. But look, we're building up to, we're on the rise as well. Like right now, in a few hours, actually in the next hour, our USFL football team will be fighting for, a two-peat championship, the Birmingham Stallions. So, we're on the rise as well. So maybe one day we'll get a PLE.
How far is Birmingham?
As well.
How far is Birmingham from Tuskegee again?
Oh God, that's about maybe 3 hours away from us, I think.
Okay, because that was the
2 or
last
3
time I
hours
was.
away.
That was the last time I was in Birmingham. I think it was like 2011. I was visiting family in Tuskegee, and then we went to Birmingham for some stuff. But yeah.
Oh, okay, great. So you've been down here. Great.
Oh,
Great.
of course. Got family out.
I may be out there in August. I'm still debating. Big
Ooh.
journalism conference, and I'm still seeing if I'm gonna get my ticket yet.
Also, so do you have any family out there?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh no.
No,
This would be a complete new trip.
True. That'd be cool.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because
Cool.
that conference is taking place the weekend of SummerSlam, which I hate, but it's okay. Because I would go, but it's SummerSlam and it's just a lot. It's a lot of opportunity. But yeah, our hometowns are amazing to all of us. So here's to the day we can get more things for Cedric, but more things for me and Boonie as well. And yeah, here's to London. If they get a WrestleMania, that would be fantastic for them. Like I can't wait to see what will be on the horizon for all of those people because they were really excited tonight. It was really great.
They figure out the formula with the overseas PLEs for sure. They got the exact type of crowd and audience you want for every show.
Gotta get live. Gotta represent.
Yes, you gotta yell, y'all. But yeah, moving into our next match, we have the women's Money in the Bank ladder match with Zoey Stark. Trish Stratus participating in her first Money in the Bank match, which is amazing for her, simply because of the fact that during her run in WWE, a match like this did not exist for the women. So this is a beautiful and historic moment for her. Io Sky, Bayley, Zelina Vega, my eternal fave, and Becky Lynch the man. This match was pretty fantastic. Becky Lynch was on a roll throughout this match. She was going like no holds barred in this match, biting people, punching people in the face, slamming Trish Stratus on the ladder, like destroying everybody she could to try to climb up and get that briefcase. Zelina was doing a lot of her crafty stuff that we know her for in this match, and I will talk about another impressive part she had in this match. Io Sky, this match was made for her simply because she is a high-flying genius of the sky. She actually hit a backwards moonsault off of a ladder onto the girls. Like, it was just amazing stuff all around from all of these women. And of course, you had the rivalries being played into with Trish and Becky, with Zoey and Becky. And then, of course, you had Bayley and Io sort of, trying to figure out who was gonna climb up and represent for Damage Control at one point. Like, it was just a lot of craziness going on with the story. You had the underdog in Zelina. Like, it was just an amazing showing here for the girls. It was just really great. But one of the most impressive parts to me was Zelina hitting her code red onto Zoey Stark off of the top of the ladder and onto another ladder, which basically laid her out for the rest of the match. And that disappointed me and made me sad because Zelina was my top fave to win. But that code red was amazing. And I'm glad that she had a moment like that where she could genuinely shock everyone with that move. Like, it was just fan-freaking-tastic. And the match found its way in a crazy manner because outside of the ring, outside of the ring, Zoey and Trish were fighting back and forth with Becky Lynch. And then Zoey went under the ring and pulled out some handcuffs and thought that she was going to handcuff Becky Lynch to the ring post, but then that wound up not happening. And so as they made their way back into the ring, Becky tried to climb up the ladder, and then Bayley tried to climb up the ladder. And at one point, Io was on the ladder, but then Bayley pushed her off, which was real shocking to me, but not shocking because, of course, this is, every woman for herself, right? And so after she pushed her off the ladder, somehow another Io recovered and started climbing up the ladder that Bayley and Becky were trying to climb up onto each other with. And then she handcuffed Bayley and Becky's wrists together and climbed up above both women to become Miss Money in the Bank. Io Sky is Miss Money in the Bank, y'all. What a world we live in. What a world, what a world, what a world. But I felt like it was turnabout fair play because Bayley just pushed her off the ladder and was thinking she was just going to get up there and just have the moment for herself. But nope, Io decided to climb above both of the horsewomen and set a trend for the new age women. It was really cool. She wasn't my fave to win, but she won. And in the comments, Joseph was saying, I wish Trish had won. They're using Money in the Bank to break up Damage Control. On the press conference, Bayley was acting like it was hers. That's not surprising with her crazy self.
Yeah, that's a surprise.
Yeah, and Jeffrey saying Bayley pushed Io from the ladder and Io got her payback. Yeah. And Dylan is saying Io versus Asuka, or does she do the sneak cash in? We don't know. And what's so funny is the women weren't, a women's title match was not on the card.
Because they had one last week.
Yeah, it wasn't really on there. So either way, you know, there's an interesting dynamic here that we have where another woman could wait to win or whatever. But Cedric, how did you feel about, you know, all the women's performances in this match? Because of course this is women's wrestling talk. And how do you feel about Io being Miss Money in the Bank?
They got it right. Like unequivocally, they got it right. Io is the next person you want to coordinate to that next level of stardom. If you have Bianca and Rhea as your flag bearers for the next 5 to 10 years, Io is right there as far as just overall sheer talent. And I think a lot of people who've been following her career back to NXT, we've known this for years, and it's like we finally get it. Now, I saw Dylan in the chat say Io versus Asuka. Yes, I want it, but I want it straight up. I don't want her to cash in on Asuka unless they're going to run it back immediately. I think this is a good time. And honestly, you can actually throw me a curveball too and have Io cash in on Rhea. That would be very interesting if they went that direction. But there's so many dream matches you can make with Io because she is like so permeable to anybody on the women's roster. She can put on a stellar match with anybody. And even though Io won, I think Zelina Vega was my MVP of this match, really showcasing some of the skills she's grown over the past year since becoming the inaugural Queen of the Ring. Just very stellar work. The Code Red was a big spot. The spot with the chancla on the top of the ladder before the Code Red, just good stuff. Her great character work and her developing this LWO character. Seeing unhinged Becky Lynch is new. It's like this unhinged Becky Lynch that's just going to run through everybody on the roster. That's actually very intriguing. And her Trish rivalry is probably not done by now. The thing that, although I wanted Io to win and she was my favorite, the thing that kind of saddens me out of anything is I thought this was like maybe a time you can give Trish kind of a layup and giving her the briefcase so she can kind of have a sneak victory to another title run. So I don't know how we get there now for Trish because we can't waste this full-time run we have with Trish Stratus. It's like unheard of. I don't think anybody in the past decade would think like, oh, we're going to get a full-time Trish run when we're this age. Unheard of. But Io holding that case and even him being at the press conference afterwards and further building the wedge between her and Bayley, wherever you go with Io now, whether it be cashing in on the likes of the SmackDown title or the likes of the Raw title, it's going to work. And this is the shot of the night, honestly. With so much that went on, this is the shot of the night. Just seeing Becky and Bayley handcuffed together, you can almost hit the Curb Your Enthusiasm music right now just because they are out of sorts. And like I can only in my mind envision like, yo, what if there's no key and they gotta like walk back to the locker room like that just to get the key? Just beautiful ending all around for this match. Like, you couldn't have wrote it any other better way than winning that way.
What about you, Boonie? How are you feeling knowing that Io is the new Miss Money in the Bank, and just looking at this shot and seeing her sit above her friend Bayley of Damage Control and above Becky, you know, as the two horsewomen in this match? Like, how are you feeling about it?
Okay, well, first and foremost, I just have to say shout out to Becky Lynch for rocking that Phoenix Jean Grey gear. I'm a big X-Men nerd, so I just had to quote that. I was like, yeah. So with Io, this is, first of all, well-deserved, and it makes sense. It's like if we even think back to Backlash when she was going against Bianca, like the crowd, like the pop and just the crowd support for Io was just showing, just like, oh, she's been on the come up, and she's been, loved, like, outside of just the states, and it got to, we got a chance to see that, like, yo, they loving her out there in Puerto Rico, and then, loving her out here in these other spots, that she wasn't getting as much of that, those cheers and stuff, like, here in the States. So I'm just proud to see that happen for her moments, everything that's been going on with Damage Control, and how, so many opportunities that have been missed or were thwarted, with whatever going on with Bailey and what's going on there. So I'm just happy to know that, one of the most deserving, to me, out of them got it. I was really looking at Zelina or Io as being, the winner of Money in the Bank. And and Zelina, just hearing, about everything going well for her and having, great spots. I can't wait to go back and watch that. I've been really just excited to see, her rise and the moments that she's been having after all these years. And so that's amazing.
Yes, and I agree, because Zelina is definitely one of my faves, from her work in NXT, because I wasn't watching Impact when she was on it. So when she was on NXT, that was the first time I ever saw her, and her being a manager and just, paying dividends for Andrade El Idolo back in the day. That was my girl from even then. And just to see her rise and to see her, have new life within her from being in LWO and her moment in Backlash, like, she was definitely my absolute favorite to win. But even if she didn't win, of course, she always has my heart. And to me, she'll always, be a great champion. And I know at some point, there could be a point where she could very well go for a championship. I'm not sure when that's going to be, because I felt like her winning Money in the Bank would have given her a guaranteed thing. But either way, Io winning it is just as deserving as well, because she's been hardworking too, especially with her and Bailey just alone in Damage Control without Dakota. Like, they've been doing a pretty good job of telling the story of two teammates that are just, out of sorts with each other at this moment. And now with Bailey bringing her up, and watching her teammates be more successful than she is, I know that's going to make her feel away. Like, I know it has to make her feel away. And that's a story that I believe deserves to be told. And Bailey is definitely the right person to tell that story. And with Io rising up the ranks in WWE after she brought her up to SummerSlam, like, just last year, like, it's only going to get greater here. And yeah, Joseph keeps saying, on the press conference, Bailey's acting like it's hers and all of the above. And yeah, that's true. But, if that's the case, then Io is going to stand up for herself and, plant her own flag. But Cedric, you had something to say?
I kind of wonder if they would have still pushed this button if Dakota hadn't got hurt. If it was just the three of them, if they would have still pushed that button. I'm very curious. Io deserves it, and I'm happy she won. There's a lot of stories you can tell with her being in that championship tier. But like, if Dakota hadn't got hurt and they're still doing the tag team thing, if they would have still pushed that button, I'm curious.
Do you think it would have went to Zelina then if Dakota was still in the picture?
No, I honestly think it would have been Trish's. Honestly.
I mean, I feel like maybe it would have been a little bit more tasteful if it was for Zelina, but not saying that it would be distasteful if it got into Trish, because like I said, Trish never had this opportunity before, and it would have been cool if it was her. But for someone who has had such a storied career such as Trish's, you could argue, does she truly need it? But it's weird. But Io Sky is the winner. She is Miss Money in the Bank, regardless to how much Bailey tries to insert herself in it. Io is the winner, and congratulations to her. She is a great representative of this at this point in her career. So I'm really happy for her, and I'm glad. But Zelina is my baby, and I want her to have a moment. So moving towards Oh God, yeah, I hope so. I really hope so. So moving on to, we're getting close now to the end, guys. Thank you guys for sticking around with us and talking about this show, though. Thank you guys so much for watching us on all platforms. As we go through this card, we have Seth Rollins versus Finn Balor for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Finn has been on the attack when it comes to Seth Rollins, beating him up, using the bitterness that he's held in his heart for these past 7 years. With Seth Rollins taking the Universal title from him after he lost it after 24 hours and stuff. He's held on to that. So now he has zeroed in on this title and he wants to make Seth Rollins pay. And this match was living proof of that. Of course, Seth was a little bit injured in his rib section. You saw the kinesio tape on him, but he was still fighting through it the same way he did, with Braun Breaker. And of course, in his match that he had on Raw and all of the above. Like, it was just crazy. This match was fantastic. For the most part, there was a couple of points where I thought maybe Finn could have won here, like especially in the multiple coup de grace he threw onto Seth Rollins. Like, there was a couple of moments there where I really thought Finn could have done it. But it got even more interesting as the Judgment Day buddy, Damien Priest, came out there with no music, but he still came out there and the crowd was cheering for him to cash it in just to be silly or whatever. But he came out there to watch and everything. And then right when Finn had climbed up for his last coup de grace that could have ended the match and allowed for him to win the title, he was distracted by Damien, and Damien acted like he was going to cash in, and then he jumped, and then Seth was able to get up, and then he hit the curb stomp onto Finn Balor and got the 1-2-3, and Seth retained the World Heavyweight title as Damien just continued to watch and not feel guilty or ashamed at the idea that he came out and feigned like he was going to cash in.
Uh-oh.
But Finn looked like he had some words with him. He was yelling at him saying, "What were you doing? How could you do that? All of the above, da 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 da." It was just real dramatic stuff. But Seth is still the World Heavyweight Champion. Finn, of course, is all out of sorts, and Damien and him, I'm more than sure, is going to continue showing their cracks as we continue to go on here. So, yeah, Boonie, how are you feeling about getting this update?
There goes a gas leak. There goes a gas leak. Oh, so, yeah, I mean, I had a feeling about Finn Balor. There's been just through the regular weekly programs, there's been times where it just seemed like he was drifting off, like just kind of off somewhere, while Judgment Day is like, "Yo, Finn, you got oh yeah," and it's like, what's going on with Finn right now? And it's been seeming like he's been a little more detaching from the Judgment Day in a way during that time where he was having his promos against Seth. So now finding this out and how that ending happened, yeah, I've been having speculation that Finn might be, on his way out, or some turmoil starting to, build with him in the Judgment Day. And well, here we go. This is clearly gonna build into something, because I mean, like I said, Finn, there was something kind of going on with Finn. I think, especially now with all of Judgment Day, like Rhea got her gold. You know what I mean? Damien got money in the bank now. You know what I mean? It's like Dominic doesn't necessarily have any gold, but they loving him with Rhea, all that. So I think right now Finn has been still trying to, get in his position where he's satisfied, and I don't think Finn is satisfied. And so that's where he went after Seth to really kind of just address like what he was dissatisfied with for losing his title. And he goes after that, and he was very passionate about that. So that being thwarted from the very teammate and the team that seems like there's something drifting within him, might be the straw that broke the camel's back right there.
You're not lying. You are not lying. Like we've seen a lot of dissent with the Judgment Day when it comes to Damien and Finn.
Yeah.
Even so, to the point that we've seen Finn talking to JD McDonough on the side. Like, it's just been a lot of crazy stuff going on, and I'm more than sure that him not having anything, especially with him also losing to Edge at WrestleMania in Hell in a Cell, on top of losing to Seth now, it's all gonna boil down and it's gonna be bad. So, Cedric, how did you feel about their performance in this match, and where could Finn go from here after this point?
This is a fun match, despite it being in a tough spot, coming in between the Civil War and the Women's Money in the Bank and all the things. But it was a fun match, and like I personally like that we've gotten this aggressive Finn back, kind of about from his second NXT run, because he's beaten Seth's ass majority of this match. So like I would have not been shocked if Finn would have won the match. It was right there. They did a little callback where he gets distracted from Priest the same way Priest distracted, or the same way Finn distracted Priest when he fought Seth. So you're teasing that dissension, but I think it's like water under the bridge. I feel like the most dominant Judgment Day member get everybody in line come Monday, and that's Rhea. That's the uncrowned leader of Judgment Day.
Yeah.
So I think she'll get everybody to fall in line, and then we'll move forward, because it's too hot of an act right now to break up. Especially without any adversary on Raw to kind of take over that TV time. But I think the match was fun. Seth kind of just escapes, if you would, with all the injuries after pretty much working match after match for the past month. We just saw him fight Braun Breaker on NXT. But I think with Finn, the beauty in this, even though the angle was like, I have this 7-year beef, which never came up until recently, that he got a little bit of his edge back. We got Finn to have a little bit of his edge back and be more of a dominant character, kind of right where he belongs. And that's cool, because this is all being done without the Demon character, which is something he didn't rely on in that second NXT run. It was no Demon characters, more back to his New Japan Prince Devitt days. I think that's great. I think it's a good spot to where you can see Finn and Seth run this back, because he was distracted, while allowing Priest to kind of develop some more of that, hey, I got this briefcase case, I'm hanging this over your head character. So I think it was stellar all around. And I think I think Mommy will get them both to go to their separate corners for now.
Yeah, she probably could get them together and smack them around a little bit, and they wouldn't do anything to her because she's Rhea. And honestly, that could work out. But Jeffrey, posed an interesting point. He says someone is going to get kicked out of Judgment Day. And honestly, I can see Finn, even though you could say that Rhea is the uncrowned leader, I would see Finn throwing Damien out and putting JD McDonough in and keeping Judgment Day going like that. That is, if JD McDonough could, his personality could, fall in line with that sort of dark Judgment Day thing. You're like, who's to say? It would be really interesting. But yeah, like, this match was really good, and Finn really was dominant here, and he truly has locked in to a part of himself that feels a little bit more organic. And I do agree with what you both, said about what could happen with the both of them. But either way, Seth is still the champion, and we live on to see that belt with a dozen fabulous outfits for a while.
Can I say one more thing? One
go
thing,
ahead.
I mean, just given off of what we've seen happen with the long form storytelling and how they did with the Bloodline, storyline, and the tension and the different thing that started way early, like, and it went for a while. So just because this thing is happening, that there's something, doesn't necessarily mean like, oh, in the next month they're gonna try to break up the Judgment Day. If there's, you know what I'm saying, it could be something that they already have put, like, yo, we gonna run this for like the next 7 months. They don't even know what's gonna hit them. Who knows? They probably have this thing all planned out, since they've learned from one faction what, the long form, could do. They might have been, preparing that for Judgment Day, as well. So who knows? Maybe this could be just one of the chapters in a full long book.
Yeah, it could very well be, but like we said earlier, Judgment Day really is, the second dominant faction that's in WWE right now. And there's so many places they could go with that. And then,
Yep.
you still have Dominic, who is, of course, acting up the way he does with Rhea and everything.
Mhm.
So there's just so much that could happen with that. But like I said, Seth is still our world heavyweight champion and he lives to fight another day, but he definitely has to keep his head on a swivel. Because you just never know. Like, Damien could try to cash in on him. Damien could try to cash in on Roman, maybe. Like, he could cash in on anybody. So you just have to keep your head on a swivel. Because when you are the champion, you have a target on your back. So, hey, it's all fair game at this point. All is fair in love and wrestling, right? So before we move on to our main event, we did get a segment from the undisputed tag team champions, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn, along with Kayla Braxton. Shout out to her, Big Bama energy. She interviewed them and asked them how they felt about being in London and also how they feel about the Bloodline Civil War that's about to take place, because they were, of course, sitting up in a box. And Kevin was just bigging up London all the time and talked about how much fun they were having. And of course, when it comes to the Bloodline, Sami had to chime in and give his 2 cents. But notably, as he was giving his 2 cents about the Bloodline, Kevin Owens' face fell and he was really bummed about it. Like, he really didn't like it. Like, he's really over the Bloodline stuff. Like, he wants to move on and he wants Sami to just focus on those two and what they have going on. And I'm almost scared that Kevin will get so tired of Sami inserting himself or people inserting him into Bloodline stuff so much that he just might do something to him. And I'm scared about that. I really am scared about that. But that did happen in between the main event. So Boonie, you sound like you have something to say to that.
Well, I think honestly, with them, because I'm a big Kevin Owens is one of my favorites of all time, but I'm a big fan of both of them. But I don't think it would. For a while, I was thinking that Kevin could snap, because he's tired of the Bloodline stuff. It keeps showing how frustrated he is. But you can also see the frustration Sami is starting to deal with Kevin and his hot-headedness and being reckless at times, and that's been showing. So that I don't think it may, if there's some tension, it might not just come from one end. It might just come from both, like both of them, like frustrated about this, frustrated, and they just go off, because it's for a while it was just saying like Kevin was the one dealing with the dealing with, Sami always talk about Bloodline, but it's just like now Sami's dealing with, dude, calm down. Or whatever it is. So who knows? I'm interested to see, but I think that tension will come would come both ways, honestly.
Absolutely. What about you, Cedric? How are you feeling about KO and Sami's, place as a tag team?
I wasn't feeling this spot on the show. I feel like this was like super unnecessary just to give them some spotlight during this, what we were preparing for, the Bloodline Civil War. And we were talking about earlier about how the women's tag titles are kind of directionless. That's how I've been feeling about these undisputed tag titles since WrestleMania. It's kind of like they're still on the outskirts of whatever Roman and Usos are doing, where there's this huge roster of tag teams that they can be feuding with. They're kind of just in limbo. And I know we get the one-off matches where it's like, oh yeah, I want some smoke, we'll have a one-off match, but there's really no feud. There's no storyline. There's the overindulgence of running backstage against Imperium weekly, but there's no feud. There's no meat and potatoes. So it's like, why did we crown them these champions if they're not going to go, do the things?
Yeah.
And it's like, and with him and Sami, that trope is like, it hits every time. The fight forever between Sami and Kevin hits every time. They know how to work together. The matches are always stellar, but the trope is so far done time and time again that's really not giving your audience anything different if Kevin were to turn on Sami, because we've seen it time and time again. I don't think that'll happen. And I don't think Sami has that in him to turn it on. It'll be a mistake to have Sami turn on Kevin when this is the hottest he's been.
Yeah, he's been
like, just playing his music in that moment. You can hear the fans doing the chants, singing the songs. They love Sammy everywhere he goes. So the best thing for them as a tag team, as a unit, is to start feuding with some of these other teams, whether it be Imperium, whether it be Alpha Academy, whether it be the Street Profits. Let's actually run some matches back and forth. Let's actually feature the tag team titles on the show and not just weekly in some of these PLEs and feature the tag team titles, because it's going to get stale.
Yeah, I agree. I think it probably should be against Imperium, since they're the heels. Because Alpha Academy right now, it's looking like being more built towards baby faces. Because I loved the promo that they just did this week. I was loving it with Otis on the treadmill. It was just, as soon as that promo was done, I just clapped. Like, that's what I'm talking about. So since Sammy and Kevin have such a big, as baby faces right now, Alpha Academy wouldn't be the right. But I would like to see Alpha Academy in the title run. It just shouldn't be against, Kevin and Sammy right now. And so I just feel, and I felt this from like maybe a week or two after WrestleMania. Like, okay, I'm good on the Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens tag team, because to me, it's like I enjoy seeing it, but they're both such titans. I like seeing their own. Like, I want to see Kevin with his rivalry. I like seeing Kevin as a heel. Period. That's why I like seeing it as a solo heel. I love, Sami Zayn. He can still take off of where he is now. So it's just like the tag team. I'm always going to love the both of them, but I feel similar to Cedric. It's just like we've seen it all before. We've seen, and the tropes of if there was turmoil, I think it would just be a matter of them losing the title to the right tag team, and then they go their separate ways with rivalries that they have. That's probably the way they would do it. But yeah, it definitely agree. It's the tag team divisions, period, have just been, I don't know, just in this weird limbo where there's not enough commitment, to the stories, the teams, who's holding the belt, all that stuff. So,
do you guys believe that because they unified the tag titles, it makes it more directionless for the tag team divisions on both shows?
No. I like the unification, because when you split, I feel like when you had the separate belts on both shows, then the apart, they weren't getting enough of their own storylines, if that makes sense. So like you'd have like the Raw tag team champs holding the belt for forever, and then maybe the SmackDowns are defending. So I think unified, and I think similar to what they've done with the other belts, is they should probably do a redesign of the belt so they're not carrying around 4. So like,
yeah,
I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm all about having just one big tag team division. I like that Kevin and Sammy can show up on both SmackDown and Raw. I would just like to see them interact with more of the roster. There's tag teams up and down. And I don't think you necessarily need heel tag teams, because you just want friendly competition, which is what they've been doing. But I would just want to see more storylines outside of like, hey, let's look at what we did 2 months ago.
Right.
Like Indu Share is there with Jinder Mahal. Like, they're cooking them up. There's a lot of people that they can feud with, even temporarily, just to get to a PLE and do a one-off, as opposed to just like, hey, I'm peeking in to see if my old friends will take me back, or if my old friends want to do handshakes. So I don't know. Honestly, I think, and we'll talk about the Civil War in a second, I think this is all a part of a bigger play to make the bloodline even stronger. And we're doing like a long-winded way of getting there.
It's so funny you talk about, people on the roster who they could feud with in terms of tag team work. Like, I would love to see them feud against Cedric and Shelton, because here lately, that's a tag team that has not been getting a lot of play. They've only been used as fodder for Indu Share to beat them up. And that's something that has been frustrating me for a while now. And honestly, if you're going to feud with somebody on Raw, you could feud with them, and they did just have a match with Pretty Deadly on last night.
Yeah,
And of course, they retained, but at the same time, like maybe they could keep that going as a feud because Pretty Deadly has more to them, that could be explored as characters outside of them, just challenging them and just cheating and winning, even though they won the gauntlet match for it, it's just like there's so much more to them that could be, dug into if they could, put the focus on that feud as a whole.
yeah.
So I
Agree.
definitely understand the both of you guys' concerns with that. And I've seen people, talk about how they feel like combining the titles or unifying the titles could be a disservice to things. Like I've seen that off and on online a lot. And that's the reason why I asked about it because it's there and their titles are united. And I do like Kevin and Sammy as a tag team because them fighting is very intense. So anytime they do get along, I tend to like it a lot more.
Yeah.
But either way, I do believe that they are more than just that moment that they had at
Oh,
WrestleMania. They're
oh
way
yeah.
more than that. And I do
Definitely. It,
agree
it
with
it's
that
for sure.
sentiment a lot.
It for sure is. It for sure is. It's like I'm just a very story driven guy. So it's just like I'm always like, okay, where does the story go from here? Where's the potential for that? So that's where I'm always interested in seeing. And that's what's always kept me a fan of the whole bloodline thing. It's the story more than anything, sometimes more than the matches, for me sometimes. So yeah, I'm just interested to see where else they could take it story wise. Right now it just to me feels like it's just more just exhibitions, like just throw with this against these people or against these people. And yeah, it's just like the rivalry you were mentioning. If it was against Shelton and Cedric, I think that would be interesting as long as they have MVP or somebody being the spokesperson for them. Because promo wise, they would struggle against especially Kevin and Sammy on promo. So I think match wise, it would be stellar. But story wise, because of promos, that's where it could you know, be like, oh, come on, guys. Y'all gotta-" so who knows?
Yeah. So this is where we're at with that. But of course, we are finally towards the end at our main event with this new episode of The Bold and the Bloodline. We have the Bloodline Civil War with Roman Reigns, the undisputed Universal Champion, and Solo Sikoa, sent from the Elders, versus the Usos, the greatest tag team of all time at this point in life. This match, you could cut the tension with a knife. You could cut it with a knife. The tension was just absolutely there. They expressed everything that led them up to this point to fighting, all of the disrespect, all of the control games, all of the narcissism, all of the tears, and all of the pain. This was sick. It was really sick, and it was almost one-sided at one point because I got scared that maybe Jimmy wasn't going to be able to do the job because Roman and Solo were tearing him up so bad in the beginning of the match. Like they were fighting him and beating him up and throwing him outside so many times, and you could almost give a little bit of credit to Roman and Solo. They, as clunky as they are as a tag team, they did operate a little bit well because there were moments where Roman would fight and then Jimmy would struggle to tag in Jay and then Solo would grab him and knock him down. Like they were operating on a little bit of a different cylinder when it came to their tag team work, even though they don't have that much experience as a tag team as the Usos do. But once Jimmy got that hot tag in on Jay, main event Jay locked in and started popping off for no reason at all. And he was just going off. He hit multiple suicide dives onto Solo and Roman until Roman caught him and slammed him at one point. Like it was just a lot of crazy stuff going on. Like it was just really great. Solo got slammed through the table because he wanted to slam, I believe, Jimmy through the announce desk, and that wound up not happening because Jimmy moved out of the way and Solo laid himself out. Roman looked absolutely disappointed in Solo at that point. But then there was one point in the match where Solo was going crazy and beating up on Jimmy and Jay, and he almost looked scared of Solo. And it just made me wonder, like, what else is going to happen here? Is Roman going to start turning on Solo because of this? Is he going to, like, is he afraid of him? Like, it was just really insane stuff. But it got even crazier when the fight started going all over the place, and they wound up hurting the referee and he got knocked out. And then they wound up hitting the 1D onto Roman, and then Roman, they could have covered him up and it was like a 1-2-3 situation, but there was no ref and everybody was frustrated. And this is where I literally feel like if there is no referee, then the people should be given the opportunity to count, because I get sick of situations like this. I just get tired of it. But either way, the match wound up going on, and Jey Uso wound up hitting Roman with a splash. And there was this other cool point where they even hit a double spear to Roman, and Roman wound up kicking out, and that was just sick. But Jey Uso hit a splash onto Roman Reigns and covering him up for the 1-2-3 as Jimmy looked on in shock and also with happiness. And the Usos wound up winning. Like, seriously? Jey covered him. And he was actually, I believe, the first person to cover him. I'm not sure if I have that correctly. He was the first person to cover him, a long time ago. And now,
like
full
2
circle,
years.
he's
Last
covered him
person was
again.
Baron Corbin.
Right.
Yep.
Like, it's just insane stuff. But the Usos wound up winning the Civil War. The North wins again. So, Cedric, how did you feel about this match? And how do you feel about the Usos and what they could do after this point?
This was actually a surprise that it was this much of a match. I expected to see like a complete unraveling of the tribal chief, just dismantling his cousins and it being completely one-sided. Didn't get that. We got like a legit match and a lot of back and forth with the Usos, who are a legit team, showcasing why they are such a successful tag team for the past decade, which tells a very unique story that they did that. But this match is beautiful for a number of reasons. Obviously, we had an AEW show last week that is being heralded for some of their matches on that card. So many good false finishes in this match. So many times that I thought the match was over and we get kickouts. And like so much things are going on, like with the 1D, with the super kick symphony that they did with Roman, having the guillotine on Jimmy, the spear to Jey, the spike spear to Jey that he kicked out of. And I think that was the kick out where he low blowed Roman. So like there was so much like storytelling in this match that you really have to go back and like slow down everything that's happening. But with the loss, with this being the first time Roman, and they called their shot on Friday night on SmackDown, this being the first time Roman's been pinned in like 3 years, to add another layer of like, hey, you're not invincible. And maybe I can be, like, going back to the pandemic, maybe I can be the tribal chief, and why not me? And you might get another one-off with Jey and Roman. And this whole orbit of the bloodline, people might want to say, like, it's taking away from other wrestlers and other opportunities, but this whole orbit is literally like feeding the WWE, because there's so many angles you can go, because we just talked about why is Kevin and Sami still paying attention, and we don't know if that's going to trickle its way back down here, but like now we can kind of see like, hey, Roman has his guard down a little bit. Will he lose the title? I don't think so. But is Jey, main event Jey Uso, right-hand man, is he going to get another shot at the throne? And what if they actually did listen to the audience for once and paid that off? I think that's what we saw today, similar to when Sami got his shot at Elimination Chamber. It's like we're seeing a payoff here. Similar to like Kevin and Sami winning titles with Mania, there's a payoff. Jey, who's been bullied for the past 3 years, got to pin Big Cousin. And no matter what happens, he's going to have that over Roman's head.
Mm-hmm.
So wherever they go with this, I have no idea. I feel like we're going to get such a diabolical Roman here, and I'm just really shocked that we didn't get that tonight. But something's got to give, and that's the Bloodline storyline. nothing's given yet. It's just the
Yeah.
constant cycle of surprise, which
What's
is why it's the great story of all time.
It is. It is. And that's why it's just like when people complain about it, that's what it's it, like,
Booney's speechless.
like it's like I said, or before we even got to it, it's just like I'm all about storylines, and this storyline, it just, I just, even when you think that it's gonna falter, like, oh, now where I'm just like, ooh. And so this soap opera, this rope opera we've been watching, for this past for all this time, for these years. It's really incredible, and it's we're watching history, and it is something that we're something of this a storyline of this magnitude, which is it's like a storyline of a lifetime. So like, you know, we getting to experience this is so dope because the next generation, they're just going to get to experience our memory of it until they have to wait until the next one comes, and that might not be until another couple generations again. So it's just like this is something special, and so I like for me, why I love the story, and that's how I know I love the storyline so much. It's almost like I'm not necessarily rooting for somebody. And it's not for this match. Got to go back and watch. I'm of course want to see the Usos win, but if the Roman wins, I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to be like, oh, okay, all right, what's next? Because they usually throw in some kind of way a story within the match that's going to be like, ooh, this happened during the match. So what's going to happen Monday? What they're going, so that's where we're at in this. And so we've watched pretty much Roman Reigns, Walter White this shit for the past like 3 years. He's Breaking Bad in this shit. And it's been great to see the rise, and we know the downfall is eventually coming, and so that's going to be entertaining to see. And what I'm looking for in the long run is the redemption from the fall, when the turn of the humbling and the getting back to his roots with the family, and now it's on some real Superman punch shit. That's when there's going to be an unstoppable. That's when it's going to be a like even above a John Cena level when he makes returns after he retires. It's just like, yo, that's how I see it. Roman's that dude. The Bloodline is that the Usos are those dudes as the tag team. The whole that yo, that's all I gotta say. It's just great. I ain't got nothing bad to say.
Yes,
That comment right there. Roman versus SummerSlam. I think that's the way out of this scenario. It's like, Roman is embarrassed. He got embarrassed in front of a whole nation. You got pinned for the first time in 3 years. But the truth is, this is a tag team match. There are other elements involved. So it's like, we're going to get back to one-on-one where I haven't lost a match in X amount of time. And I think that's when you're going to see that get back and that diabolical Roman. And it might be a slow dismantling. We might see something in Detroit that we haven't seen before. We might see Roman versus Jimmy to start the night, and then Roman versus Jay to end the night. Who knows? There's like so many ways you can go with this, which is why it's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I love the Usos so much. Every time I think about how, I don't know if it was this week or last week, they were talking about on Twitter how it's been like 13 years for the Usos, 12 or 13 years that they've been with WWE, and just watching their evolution up until now and everything that they've done. And every time I see them in the ring, I think about everything that they said on the Masked Man show live at Wale Mania, and just how they never really thought about how they had never really thought that this storyline would grow to the point to where it's gotten, and them growing, where they even are, even with Solo. Like, it's just the most amazing thing I've ever seen. Like, I've never seen a story like this have a new life like this. As long as I've been watching wrestling, and I've been watching this since I was 4. Like, it's just insane stuff to just witness, and I'm so happy that the Usos were able to have this moment, because I also think about them as people and just how much turmoil they've had to go through, in terms of personal stuff as well, improvements, and then
Yes.
having to deal with changes and all of the above.
Yeah.
And even in this past year where Jimmy had to, start dealing with the reality that his other half isn't with him anymore, traveling the road along with his brother too. Like, it's just a lot of changes that they've had to go through, but
Mhm.
they've handled it all with grace and
Mhm.
with sophistication and with dominance. They
Yeah.
beat the New Day's record, and you just see how much success that they've gotten from this. It's just amazing stuff. But
Yeah.
what I can say is I've loved them from jump, and just to see them get to this point, it's just really great. But yeah, when it comes to Roman, we got to watch out for him, because he really might be on some Thanos
Yeah.
type of
Yo,
stuff.
yeah, he's gonna be yeah, but the Usos, I agree too, because it's like I've been watching wrestling since I was a little kid, and then after high school, I like fell off basically during the whole ruthless aggression era. So I missed the whole like John Cena era and everything. What brought me back was my wife was watching Total Divas all the time on E. So it's just like, so Trinity being on there. That's I was just seeing the Usos, all that. So I was introduced to all of them as people, you know, that are working in the field. So it wasn't until a good like year or two later that I started watching Raw and SmackDown again, and get just to watch, because they were still with the face paint and the shorts and everything once I started watching again, and they had already been in for a while. And so just to see that they've been there for so long, so many people had probably thought like that was it for them. That was the peak for them. There was no higher to go. And then it just broke right through that ceiling. Like, they hit their prime at a time that you would have been not surprised if they decided to retire, And so that's really amazing to see what has happened for them and their evolution, especially for Jay. I'm saying
Hmm.
that straight up for Jay, because Jimmy was usually known as, same thing on watching Total Divas. It was like I was always seeing Jimmy on Total Divas. He was the funny one, and Jay always seemed like that quiet one that was, and so him to evolve, externally and internally, like he's on some other shit now, and I'm just really happy for him how he stepped up during a time that just weren't sure where the Usos were going, and we weren't sure where the world was going because we got hit with a pandemic, and how he held it down all the way up to this point and where it's at now. Yo, that's beautiful. Hats off, my high salute to that.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. But of course, just to reiterate, the Usos beat Roman and Solo Sikoa at the end of Money in the Bank. What a beautiful and triumphant way to cap off an amazing pay-per-view. And of course, this means we've reached the end of our time together. Thank everyone so much, for watching all of us on all of our live platforms. Thank you guys for chiming in with your opinions. And of course, I want to just say thank you to Cedric and Boonie. This is our first time on a show together. And I watch you guys do your thing on the news all the time. And it's just really great to be on with you guys to talk about this, amazing thing. So starting with Cedric, please let everyone know where they can find and follow you and what you've got going on.
All right, you can find me on Twitter when it's working, because it's not working right now. At
Literally.
Seth Says, that's CEDD_SAYS. If you're not a Twitter Blue member, you might only see 600 tweets or less. You can find me on the gram at Said is the Answer. Check out my journalism work on Hawthorne Community Television. They have a YouTube channel. I do some news anchoring there. And you can read my articles at dailyddt.com. I'll be posting an article this weekend recapping Money in the Bank.
And you, Boonie?
Oh, yes, yes. You can find me on Instagram at Boonie Mayfield. Also on YouTube. I have several shows, a lot of content, both on my Instagram, YouTube, music videos, different shows. I got a musical comedy show called Boom TV with my wife. Check that out. If you got a crazy, wild sense of humor, you'll love it. And other shows like my Boom Walker series. Check it out. My music's out on Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. And yeah, just check me out. And that's all I gotta say. That's how you can find me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And just know you can follow me and find me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And also listen to my show, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast, everywhere you get your podcasts. And subscribe to me on the YouTube channel, The Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And just follow me also on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter, when it's working, at Hardy Wrestle Pod. But most importantly, please follow Women's Wrestling Talk. Support the brand. Of course, we are on Instagram and Twitter at WW Talk Pod. And of course, check out our website, which is under construction at this moment, but we are going to have a new website that's upgraded and updated for you guys at www.talkpod.com, where I do have a new article that just went up yesterday celebrating Pride Month and talking about the possibility of wrestling, including a LGBTQIA plus love story called Is Wrestling Ready for Prideful Love? Please read it if you have a mind to. And just continue to support us on all of our shows and all of our programming that we've got going on all the time, every day for your enjoyment. And of course, this has been Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. And until next time, bye, y'all.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.